After being reborn, I wasted no time picking up a club and giving my mom a thorough beating. My best friend, who rushed over to break up the fight, ended up sprawled on the ground as well. Afterward, I calmly called the police and happily marched myself off to jail. In my previous life, it all started when my best friend got drunk and caused trouble at a bar. She smashed over 100 bottles of Lafite wine and, while fleeing, hit multiple people with her car. Yet the victims didn't come after my best friend. They came after me. I cried out that I'd been wronged, but they produced surveillance footage and dashcam records. In those recordings, the perpetrator really did look exactly like me. My mom even stepped forward to testify. That person in the video is my daughter. She has severe mood swings and smashed everything, then rammed into people just to vent. I was left utterly speechless. In the end, the enraged victim's family members stabbed me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the night before my best friend would smash that bar and injure people. Chapter 1. Staring at my mom and best friend lying on the ground, battered and bruised, whimpering for mercy, I calmly dialed the police and the hospital. The doctors took those two away, and the police took me into custody. The very next day, my mom, Sandra, and my best friend, Nicole, hobbled into the police station on crutches to sign a letter of forgiveness and bail me out. I flatly refused and insisted on staying in detention. My mom's face twisted with frustration. "Cecilia, are you out of your mind? I'm trying to save you here." Nicole, her face wrapped in gauze and eyes swollen, forced a smile. "Cecilia, I know you were just upset. I forgive you. Please, come out." I stood there, righteous and unyielding. I'm not the type to shirk responsibility. If I've done wrong, I should accept my punishment. No matter how they pleaded, I refused to budge. In the end, the two of them left in disappointment, seeing my cooperative attitude in confessing and turning myself in. The police gave me a light sentence of 7 days in detention. Upon hearing that, I felt as if a great weight had lifted from my shoulders. This time around, I made sure to put them out of commission and get myself into jail, just to see how they'd try to frame me now. In my previous life, my mom was willing to give everything to help Nicole, who was her best friend's daughter, while she treated me, her own flesh and blood, with nothing but cruelty. Back then, when I had an appendicitis operation, I begged my mom to stay a few days to care for me, but right after I came out of surgery, she said she had to leave. Nicole got drunk at a bar. "I need to check on her. Be strong on your own." She never came back. I had to crawl to use the bathroom and get a drink of water. The intense pain made me scream until my surgical wound tore open several times. Just as I finally endured through to my discharge day, I heard the news. Nicole had gotten drunk, smashed 100+ bottles of Lafite at a bar, then hit multiple people while fleeing in her car. I tried to persuade Nicole to turn herself in immediately and apologize to the victims, hoping for leniency, but Nicole looked completely unfazed. "Cecilia, why should I apologize and turn myself in for the wine and the hit and run that you committed?" My mom chimed in self-righteously. "Cecilia, I taught you since you were a child that if you do something wrong, you must take responsibility. How can you try to pin this on Nicole?" I was utterly baffled. It was clearly Nicole who caused all that trouble. Why were both of them accusing me? Soon enough, the bar owner and the victims' families came after me, livid and seeking justice. They even showed me the surveillance footage and dashcam recordings inside. Sure enough, the perpetrator looked just like me. Surveillance and dashcam footage are right here. You think you can deny this? Over 3 million yuan worth of wine, plus the loss of business at my bar for these few days. You must pay me back. My wife was 8 months pregnant, about to give birth, and this beast ran her down, sending her to the hospital. The baby's gone and my wife's still in critical condition. "I'll kill you." My daughter had her university entrance exams today. "You heartless monster. You ruined her future, breaking her leg. I'll never let you off." I was dumbstruck at the time. I truly couldn't understand how, when it wasn't me who committed these crimes, the footage could show me doing it, with no way to defend myself. I was ultimately stabbed to death by the furious victims' relatives. This time around, I wouldn't let that tragedy happen again. After spending my 7 days peacefully in the detention center, I walked out of the holding cell feeling light and free. No sooner had I stepped outside the detention center's gate than an elderly woman grabbed onto me. Her face twisted ferociously, her eyes bloodshot, as though she wanted to tear me apart alive. "You wretched thing. You caused my daughter to lose her child and end up in the hospital. I'll bite you to death." With that, she opened her mouth and lunged at me, ready to sink her teeth in. Chapter 2. I hastily shook her off and stepped back a couple of paces. To my surprise, she wasn't alone. A whole group of people surged toward me from every direction. Behind them, I spotted my mom and Nicole, clearly the ones who had led these people here. Their faces were twisted with rage and hatred. They gnashed their teeth and glared at me like I was a monster. "You venomous woman, driving drunk, running people down, causing my child's death, I'll strangle you. You wretched creature, you broke my daughter's leg and destroyed her future. This isn't over, not by a long shot." Facing the tide of enraged people, I instinctively retreated, thinking about ducking back into the detention center for safety. I tried to reason with them. "Perhaps you've made a mistake. I literally just got out of detention." Before I could finish, my mom rushed forward and grabbed hold of me, deliberately raising her voice. "Cecilia, it's too late to run from this now. Take responsibility like you should. I've taught you so many times not to be willful. You've hurt so many people just to vent your anger. And now you still want to escape? Are you expecting me, your mother, to bear this burden for you?" Nicole also put on a sorrowful face. "Cecilia, I never thought you'd do something so vile. I want to help you, but I can't. Hurry and turn yourself in to avoid the death penalty." Hearing my own family and friends say these things, the victims' families became even more incensed, threatening to kill me on the spot. Sensing danger, I shook off my mom's grip and tried to dart back into the detention center, only to bump straight into Officer Lee. They had heard the commotion outside and stepped out to check. "What's going on here? Why are you all causing a ruckus at the detention center's entrance?" Officer Lee demanded. My mom quickly reached for me again, trying to drag me away, while forcing a flattering smile at Officer Lee. "We'll be leaving right away." Realizing that if my mom got me away from here, I'd be done for, I quickly shook her off and hid behind Officer Lee, pointing at her. "Officer, please help me. They're falsely accusing me and trying to kill me." Officer Lee shielded me and addressed the crowd. "This young woman just got out of detention. She has no grudge against any of you. Is there some kind of misunderstanding?" A man shouted emotionally. "Misunderstanding? The surveillance footage clearly shows her hitting people. Even her mother admits it. What's the point of defending her? No matter how well connected you are, we will hold you responsible." Hearing the commotion, a crowd of onlookers gathered, some even streaming the incident live on their phones. The viewers in the live stream room, upon hearing that the culprit who committed the hit and run had been caught, were furious as well. Monsters like her are anti-human. No need for trial, just execute her on the spot. No cover-ups allowed. I support the death penalty. I was both furious and bewildered. I had even gone to the extent of spending time in detention to avoid all this. Yet here they were, still refusing to let me go. "Why are you all hounding me like this? I haven't harmed any of you." One victim's family member practically jumped in rage. "You venomous woman. Besides smashing up the bar, you hit 6 pedestrians who are still lying in critical condition at the hospital. How dare you claim not to have harmed us? Are you even human?" Unlike my past self who was overwhelmed and panicked, this time I had a bit more composure. "I swear those things weren't done by me. I've been in the detention center for the whole past week." My mom rushed up to silence me, but I pushed her away. She looked livid. "You're still spouting nonsense. The day before yesterday, you smashed over 100 bottles of Lafite at the bar and hit 6 pedestrians while fleeing. You don't want to own up to that?" Nicole put on a pained, sympathetic act. "Cecilia, there's no point denying it now. The surveillance footage is there for all to see. It's better to surrender and hope for some leniency." Officer Lee's face grew stern as he looked at my mom and Nicole. "That's not right. The day before yesterday, she was still locked up here in the detention center. I was personally on guard. How could she have possibly gone out and committed those crimes?" Chapter 3. The bar owner jumped with rage at the police officer's words. Immediately pulling out his phone, voice trembling, he shouted to the crowd, "I have the surveillance footage right here. Let's see her try to deny it now." He pressed play with shaking hands. "Look carefully, this is her, isn't it? Trying to weasel out of paying me over 3 million yuan? Not a chance." In the video, one moment I was sipping a drink at the bar, and the next I went berserk, grabbing a club and smashing the expensive wine cabinets. A staff member tried to stop me and got stabbed by a broken bottle in return. Another victim's family member pulled out his phone, fuming, and showed a dashcam recording. In this clip, the car on the screen deliberately swerved toward pedestrians, knocking down several people. The person behind the wheel was clearly me. The crowd, after seeing these videos, was on the verge of tearing me apart if not for the police presence. Online, the livestream viewers were also in an uproar. "This is too strange. How could she commit these crimes while she was in detention? Something's fishy. Don't be fooled by her gentle looks, she's got a heart of stone." She specifically targeted the most expensive wines. Over 30,000 yuan a bottle. Wow. The bar owner's about to make a killing, even if it was fake wine. It just became real money. Agreed. That commenter must own a bar too. Look at how she changes course whenever she sees someone on the road. She's clearly doing it on purpose. Twisted and out to take revenge on society. No need for trials. People like her should be executed immediately. The police officers were just as baffled after watching the videos. They turned to me, perplexed. Without having lived through this once before, I might have panicked. But this time, I stayed calm. "Officer, they have their surveillance footage. But the detention center has its own surveillance as well. I've been here the entire 7 days." Officer Lee found this reasoning sensible. He instructed his colleagues to keep an eye on me and hurried back inside to retrieve the footage from the detention center. Soon enough, the detention center surveillance was played back. It clearly showed that on the very day of the alleged crimes, I was indeed inside, picking at my feet and reading comics. I was muttering something along the lines of, "This author's writing is absolute garbage." Everyone who saw the detention center footage was completely dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the livestream viewers turned even more curious and excited. "This is beyond weird. Does she have some sort of superpower to teleport? Someone's watched too many sci-fi shows. Get real, people." The only logical explanation is that she has a twin. One stayed in detention. The other committed the crimes outside. Yes, that makes sense. If not twins, then it's paranormal. Or there's someone pulling the strings behind the scenes, helping her commit the crimes. True, maybe her getting locked up was all part of a bigger scheme to cover up her evil deeds. You're too cynical. The world isn't always that rotten. Taking note of the discussions, Officer Lee seemed inspired. He turned to me and asked, "Do you have a twin sister?" Chapter 4. I shook my head and pointed to my mom. "Sandra, I wouldn't know. You'd have to ask her." Officer Lee immediately turned to my mom for questioning. "Ms. Sue, do you have another daughter?" Ms. Sue shook her head vigorously, like a rattling drum. "No, Cecilia is my only child. I know my own daughter well. She definitely did this, and I'm not surprised she won't admit it. She's never been willing to admit her mistakes since she was little. She has a tendency toward mania, a kind of antisocial personality. As a mother, I'm heartbroken that my daughter would do something so cruel, but we must follow the law. For something so heinous, she should be executed." Though Ms. Sue tried to appear grieved and resolute, Officer Lee detected something off. He gave my mom a careful once-over. Disbelief etched on his face. "Ma'am, your daughter hasn't been convicted yet. Why are you so eager for her to receive the death penalty? You two don't act like a normal mother and daughter at all." A flash of anger crossed Sandra's eyes at being called out. She raised her chin and accused Officer Lee. "What's wrong with you officers? Is it wrong for me to uphold justice, even if it's against my own family? You're not trying to protect her because she's pretty, are you?" Officer Lee was incensed by her unreasonable accusations. This is highly irregular. Your testimony is very suspicious. We'll have to investigate your family background." Hearing that the police planned to investigate their family, Sandra's face went deathly pale. Her lips trembled uncontrollably. After a brief panic, she began inciting the victims' families again. "You've all seen it yourselves. My daughter committed a grave crime. and I'm willing to see her punished. But if someone wants to shield her, there's nothing I can do. Nicole immediately caught on and chimed in. Cecilia, all the facts and evidence are plain to see. Don't think someone can save you. As your friend, I advise you to turn yourself in and hope for leniency. But by now, even the victims' families sensed that things weren't as straightforward as they seemed. None of them fell for the provocation. Just then, another officer rushed over, looking excited. We found something. On the day of the incident, Cecilia was granted a temporary medical release. Could she have used that time to commit the crime? In an instant, everyone's gaze returned to me. Sandra immediately poured fuel on the fire. My daughter's always been cunning. I'm sure she used that medical release time to do it. Officer Lee looked at me doubtfully. That day, you said your appendectomy wound was infected. So I took you to the hospital because it was a personal medical exam in a private area. I didn't go inside with you. Don't tell me. Nicole jumped in. From smashing the bar to running people down only takes about half an hour. It's entirely possible during the medical leave. Cecilia, I know it was you. Just surrender and hope for some mercy. Hearing this, the victims' families began to stir again. It's definitely her. Pay for my losses. Give me back my child. My daughter-in-law tried so hard to get pregnant, and that wretch ran her down, beat this vicious monster to death. Even though several officers tried to shield me, it was tough to hold back dozens of enraged victims and their families. At this critical moment, a calm, low female voice suddenly resonated through the crowd. Stop! In an instant, about a dozen men in black clothes and sunglasses rushed in. They pushed back the furious onlookers and formed a protective circle around me. That unreliable person I'd been waiting for had finally arrived. Chapter 5. Everyone's gaze followed the direction of the voice. A noble woman, draped in a fur coat and wearing a face veil, gracefully stepped down from a Rolls-Royce parked nearby. Just when the crowd expected her to remove the veil as she approached, she inexplicably turned around and got back into the car. This move thoroughly enraged the victims' families. Who does she think she is? Does having money make you untouchable? No wonder this woman is so arrogant. She's got someone powerful backing her. I don't care how influential her connections are, no one is above the law. I dare anyone to protect this criminal. Sandra looked at me in horror. Who is that? Why is she helping you? I couldn't be bothered to answer her. Nicole immediately chimed in. Raising her voice on purpose, I heard Cecilia found herself a contract mother out there. I never thought Cecilia would stoop so low for money. The livestream audience erupted in ridicule as well. No wonder this girl's so brazen. She's got a rich sugar mama. Now that you mention it, she does look a bit like. No amount of money can excuse such evil deeds. As ordinary citizens, we won't stand for it. I was so anxious I could have jumped out of my skin. Meanwhile, that unreliable woman who had re-entered the car made not a sound. On sight, the victims' families seethed with fury. So what if she has bodyguards? We'll charge right in and drag that woman out. Exactly. There are 40 of us and only a dozen of them. We can handle it. Just as things were about to spiral out of control, the mysterious woman in the car still showed no sign of acting. I couldn't help shouting toward the car. Misty, what are you doing? If you don't come out now, I'm going to be killed. At the mention of Misty, Sandra and Nicole's expressions changed dramatically. They unconsciously stepped back 2 paces. Finally, the woman in the car removed her veil and stepped out, smiling. Cecilia, don't blame Mom for being fussy. We've only just reunited as mother and daughter. I had to create a bit of ceremony, didn't I? This woman, of all times to care about ceremony, she was as unreliable as ever. No wonder she never realized her own daughter had been swapped. On hearing Misty call me daughter, Nicole's face fell. She rushed to Misty and clung to her arm, pretending to be affectionate. Mom, what's going on? Why did you call Cecilia daughter? I'm your daughter. Misty cast a cold glance at Nicole and shook her off. Nicole, I never imagined that you and your mother would both be so ungrateful. No matter how well I treated you, you still conspired to kill my own flesh and blood daughter. Have you no conscience at all? Get away from me. From now on, I don't know you. Consider the last 20 years as me feeding dogs. Nicole's face filled with terror. After glaring fiercely at me, She scurried behind her own mother. Sandra. Misty then turned her icy gaze on Sandra, cursing her outright. Sandra, you're worse than a beast. If I hadn't supported you back then, you wouldn't have even finished college. Without me giving you job opportunities, you'd still be a telephone operator in some third-tier city. I treated you as a true friend, sincerely and wholeheartedly. Yet you swapped my daughter and have been abusing her all along, and now you want to frame and kill her? I won't let this go. With that, she lunged forward, trying to grab Sandra, but Officer Lee quickly stopped her. Sandra's face went deathly pale, her voice trembling. How did you find out? Chapter 6. Misty blinked her large, feathery eyes and puckered her lips, saying, if my clever daughter hadn't noticed something was wrong and secretly had the identification done, I would have been fooled by you forever. You're despicable. It was only after my death in the previous life that I discovered the truth. It turned out that Misty and her mother had orchestrated this tragic incident to frame me, intending to kill me and cover up their crimes, all because I thought Misty and I looked alike and casually mentioned to Sandra, Mom, why do I feel like I look so much like Mrs. Wong? Feeling guilty and fearing the truth would be exposed, Sandra concocted this false accusation. Their goal was to ruin me completely. The livestream audience was abuzz with this bizarre twist. Oh wow, isn't this plot something only found in novels? How come it's happening in real life too? Hey, you're crazy, right? Isn't it said that art imitates life or something like that? This friend is truly vicious, swapping children for power. That wealthy woman clearly has a complicated background, but she's so naive that others can't help but covet her. Sigh. It's always said, watch out for fire, theft, and treacherous best friends. Seeing her plan unravel, Nicole looked at Sandra with resentment. Mom, it's all your fault. You had to pull this stunt. Now everything's ruined, and my happy life is gone forever. Boo-hoo. Sandra forced calmness, scolding Nicole. Why are you panicking? The incident isn't over yet. She smiled coldly at Misty. Misty, it's too late now that you know the truth. Cecilia has committed heinous crimes, whether it's the death penalty or life imprisonment. What's the use of admitting it now? I suggest you keep Nicole. After all, you've raised her for so many years. She means more to you than outsiders, right? I spit on you. I've donated all my assets, and your daughter won't get a single penny from me. You think you can seize our family fortune through such despicable means? I won't let you succeed. Sandra smirked shamelessly. The reason I swapped the children was to fulfill one of your wishes. My wish? Misty was momentarily stunned. Then her big eyes widened as she angrily retorted. Your mother's ridiculous nonsense, shamelessly trying to greedily seize my family's fortune, claiming it's to fulfill my wishes. I've never seen anyone so shameless as you. Sandra remained unfazed, responding calmly. When we were both pregnant, didn't you say that any child you had in the future must endure more hardships to build character? You don't want them to grow up in a honeypot, easily deceived by others. So, I swapped the child to ensure she faces more hardships. Was that to fulfill your wish? Misty was left speechless. The livestream viewers were entertained by Sandra's bizarre statements, chiming in, still saying the same thing. Never seen anyone so shameless. She can perform shamelessness so cleanly. Only she can do it. Is amazing. It doesn't seem like she's entirely wrong. She helped her best friend fulfill her wishes perfectly. Didn't she? Hey, did your reading comprehension come from a PE teacher? Or has your brain shrunk evolutionarily? The victims' families, initially hoping for a new lead, soon realized it was just a dramatic family feud and couldn't contain their frustration. The man whose wife had a miscarriage was the first to explode in anger. I don't have the patience to listen to your cat and mouse child swapping drama. I just want to know who caused my wife's miscarriage and took away my child. Sandra glanced at me slyly, her voice dripping with malice. We have surveillance footage, solid evidence that Cecilia did this. What more do you need to doubt her? The victims' families began to clamor. Officer, you need to deliver justice for us. The culprit is right in front of you. Please arrest her immediately. Even after being reborn, facing the onslaught of hostility from the victims' families left me somewhat panicked. especially since that unreliable Ms. Wang wasn't proving helpful, who knew how well she had carried out my instructions. Chapter 7. When Misty saw the victims' families getting agitated, she quickly tried to calm them down. Please, remain calm. Your injured relatives have all received timely treatment, and they're no longer in any serious danger. You don't need to worry about medical or rehabilitation costs. I'll cover everything. When Mrs. Wang said this, the man whose wife had miscarried immediately became upset, shouting angrily, "Who cares about your filthy money? My child is gone." Mrs. Wang remained calm, looking at him with a composed expression. Your wife only had a minor miscarriage. It wasn't a real abortion. I hired the best gynecologist to treat her, and your child has been saved. If you don't believe me, call your wife. The man looked at Mrs. Wang in disbelief, muttering, "That can't be." I clearly saw her bleeding. Still skeptical, he hesitantly dialed his wife's phone. The elderly man whose daughter had been injured also began to shout, "My daughter's foot injury will affect her exam tomorrow. This is a matter of her future. It can't be settled with just a little bit of money." Mrs. Wang remained unfazed. Your daughter just twisted her ankle when she fell. There's no real fracture. After treatment, she will be fine and the exam won't be affected. Just as the old man was starting to doubt, he heard the man beside him shout, "It's true! It's great! My wife is fine, and my child is saved." The old man hurriedly called home and found out that his daughter's leg was indeed healed. He sighed in relief and even bowed to Mrs. Wang. Other victims also called their families and learned that their relatives, after receiving timely treatment, were all doing well. Their emotions began to calm down as well. After realizing I had been reborn, I thought of many ways to stop Sandra and Nicole's evil actions, but nothing worked. Because their evil deeds hadn't been exposed, we couldn't take action against them. If they successfully framed me, I would be doomed. So, I came up with a plan to strike them first and then send myself to prison. Before entering prison, I wrote a letter to my biological mother, Mrs. Wang, and based on the memories from my previous life, I had her tamper with the car that Nicole would later use to commit the crime. She altered the car's engine and the body material, which greatly reduced the impact of the crash. Then, I arranged for the injured to receive immediate medical treatment, minimizing the damage caused by Nicole's reckless actions. As a result, the injuries in this life were mostly minor, while in my previous life, many victims had suffered severe, fatal injuries. As I saw that the issues with the injured victims' families were being resolved, the bar owner was still dissatisfied. What about my wine? That's 30,000 a bottle for Lafite. Over 100 bottles, more than 3 million. Can that be restored? Misty smiled at Sandra and Nicole and said, "As for these injured people, I helped them purely out of humanitarian concern. That doesn't mean it was my biological daughter who did this. As for your wine, the culprit will have to pay for that." This time, I specifically cooperated with the police to collect fingerprints from the bar's bat and the car's steering wheel. It won't be hard to figure out. You can imitate appearances, but fingerprints can't be faked. After hearing Mrs. Wang's words, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. She had finally done something reliable. But when I saw Sandra and Nicole exchange a sly smile, my heart skipped a beat. A bad feeling surged within me. Chapter 8. Officer Lee entered the laboratory with the fingerprint data my mother had collected. As I waited, my heart pounded wildly. Mrs. Wang noticed my nervousness. She walked over to me, grabbed my hand, and comforted me, saying, "Don't be afraid. Your mom's here." As soon as she finished speaking, we heard Officer Lee's voice from inside. After comparing the fingerprints on the evidence, they match exactly with Cecilia's. My legs went weak, and I nearly collapsed. But Mrs. Wang caught me in time. Mrs. Wang looked stunned. How could this be? I collected the fingerprints right here with the police. Nicole walked over with a smug smile. Now the evidence is even more conclusive. How are you going to deny it? The bar owner yelled at me angrily. You did it. Pay up now. Mrs. Wang frowned and snapped at him. What are you shouting for? If it was really my daughter, your losses would only be a few peanuts. But if you try to wrong my daughter, I'm telling you, no chance. At this moment, the viewers in the live stream were also stunned, commenting, This mom is something else. She's saving everyone, while specifically setting up her daughter. Sigh. Anyone born to her as a daughter is really unlucky. Switched at birth, then used as a scapegoat. I feel like my brain is fried. Is this mom really that dumb? Or am I missing something? What's her game? Bringing crime evidence for her daughter? Honestly, this live stream is more entertaining than any novel. The online writers wouldn't dare write this. The viewers weren't the only ones confused. I was completely baffled as well. I had been in jail the whole time. I hadn't been to the bar or touched any cars. How could my fingerprints be there? Looking at Nicole's smug grin, I immediately knew it had to be her doing. She must have predicted my prediction and collected my fingerprints in advance, smearing them on the wooden stick and the car's steering wheel. Then, she set the trap for me to walk right into when I tried to prove my innocence. I couldn't fall into her trap. As long as I had an alibi, I'd be safe. The only flaw in my alibi was the time I went to see the doctor. But if I could get Dr. Zhang, who treated me, to testify, plus the hospital's surveillance footage of my visit, wouldn't that give me a perfect alibi? With this thought, I couldn't help but shout, Dr. Zhang from the hospital can vouch for me. I saw her the day before yesterday when I went to have my wound treated. She can prove that I was at the hospital right after being released from the detention center, and I had no time to commit any crime. I kept my eyes on Nicole and Sandra, watching for their reactions. Nicole smirked slightly when I mentioned finding the doctor to testify, her face calm and unconcerned. Sandra also looked completely composed, as if she had everything under control. Seeing their expressions, a new wave of doubt washed over me. The police, hearing my request, thought it made sense and sent someone to bring Dr. Zhang in for questioning. The hospital wasn't far from the police station, so it didn't take long for her to arrive. As soon as she entered, the doctor pointed at me and said, I recognize this patient. That day, right before my shift ended, you came to say goodbye, telling me you had to leave in a hurry. Since your wound had just been stitched, you needed to rest for 2 hours. But you refused to listen. You rushed out of the hospital, and I couldn't even catch up to you. The police also brought the footage of me running out of the hospital. Unfortunately, because of privacy protection, there was no surveillance in the ward where I was staying. This made it even harder for me to explain myself. Chapter 9. Sandra looked at me in a panic, sneering, like mother, like daughter, both of you are complete fools. Everyone else's reputation is getting clearer. But you too? The more you try to clean it up, the worse it gets. Mrs. Wang didn't get angry. Instead, she laughed and said, whether we're fools or whether it gets worse, we still have the ability to solve problems. I firmly believe my daughter didn't do this, and even if she did, I have the power to fix it. The live stream exploded with comments. What a big mouth! She thinks she can fix such a huge crime? No wonder her daughter acts like she has no fear of the law. It's probably her daughter who did it. Otherwise, she wouldn't be saying this. She must have no way out in the face of the evidence. So she's just talking tough. This is basically admitting it directly. And the police are still not arresting her? Are they waiting for winter? After hearing Mrs. Wang's bold words, all eyes in the room turned to her. She, however, looked at Sandra with a playful expression, like a lazy cat toying with a mouse she had nearly defeated. You think I don't know the tricks you've been pulling? I've just been enjoying this little game of mine. Sandra sneered. Keep talking big. Your daughter is going to prison. Let's see how you handle it. Just because you have money doesn't make you anything special. Mrs. Wang gave a cold laugh, clapped her hands, and shouted, Bring out Master Amias. Upon hearing that name, Sandra immediately stopped laughing. Her face turned to one of panic, and she stumbled back, nearly falling to the ground. At that moment, the Rolls-Royce door opened again. Two men in black helped a middle-aged man with dark skin, a bald head, and Southeast Asian attire out of the car. Seeing this man from Southeast Asia, Sandra and her daughter looked terrified. They immediately tried to flee, but they were stopped by the bodyguards Mrs. Wang had brought. Seeing they couldn't escape, Sandra began to throw a tantrum, shouting, This is about your daughter's crime. Why are you bringing a foreigner here? Trying to distract everyone. Huh? Everyone. Let's get together and drive away this crazy woman who's trying to cover for her daughter. And arrest her daughter. She tried to incite chaos to make her escape, but no one paid her any attention. After getting out of the car, the bald man kept glaring at Sandra. He started to angrily speak in a broken but strong Mandarin, accusing her. "You vicious woman. You hired me to perform a facial surgery for your daughter, and after I did it, you didn't pay me. Instead, you tried to silence me. If it weren't for Mrs. Wang saving me, I would have already sunk to the bottom of the sea, feeding the fish." Seeing this scene, the live stream went wild. Whoa, this even involves a foreigner? This is getting more and more exciting. Facial surgery? This sounds like something out of a martial arts novel. In many Southeast Asian countries, they actually have such secret arts. I saw someone perform this on the streets when I was traveling in Thailand 2 years ago. Realizing the situation had turned against her, Sandra immediately began to scream hysterically. "This is a complete frame-up. Look, this woman is using her wealth to get people to slander me and my daughter in order to clear her daughter's name." Officer Lee, hearing the foreigner mention being silenced, immediately stopped Sandra from making a scene. He walked over to Mrs. Wang and asked, "What's going on with this foreign friend?" Chapter 10. Mrs. Wang smiled and glanced at Sandra. "After receiving my daughter's letter, I knew Sandra would cause trouble, so I arranged for someone to follow her. Last night, we saw her and her daughter driving to the seaside in the middle of the night. They threw a sack into the sea from the car. My people retrieved the sack and found that it contained a foreigner bound by hands and feet. The rest of the story you can hear from this master." At this point, Nicole collapsed onto the floor, while Sandra tried to maintain her composure, signaling for her daughter to get up with a sharp glance. She shouted loudly, "This is slander. I don't even know this foreigner. The idea of facial surgery is ridiculous." The Southeast Asian master, who wasn't very fluent in the language, couldn't be bothered to argue with Sandra. He simply took out several memory cards from his bag and handed them to Officer Lee. It turned out that the Southeast Asian man had anticipated this and recorded a video of the transaction, in case the clients tried to back out of paying him. As the police watched the video, the Southeast Asian man opened his toolbox and began to perform a facial transformation on one of the bodyguards. In less than half an hour, he managed to transform the male bodyguard into an almost exact replica of my face. The only noticeable difference was the height, but the facial features were nearly identical. The crowd at the scene gasped in astonishment, and the live stream audience skyrocketed, reaching over 100,000 viewers. "I'm seeing this for the first time. There really is such a magical technique in the world. It's almost identical, and it's a man who was transformed. Imagine if it had been a woman. It would have been even more convincing. This clears up the mystery once and for all. The real culprit must be someone else. There's no way someone could escape from the detention center and commit crimes like that." At this point, Mrs. Wang's intelligence truly amazed me. I had misunderstood her as unreliable, but it turned out she had been meticulously planning everything. If it hadn't been for her detailed preparation, even hiding in the detention center wouldn't have helped me. Just then, Officer Lee came out, carrying a playback device. Because this was a public matter and involved a foreigner, the police decided to publicly display the evidence to convince everyone. The first part of the video showed Sandra and her daughter negotiating with the Southeast Asian man. "Southeast Asian man, I'm only responsible for the facial transformation. Nothing else. It's 300,000 for each transformation. I can only stay here for 7 days. I have a client waiting in Thailand." "Sandra, the price isn't a big problem. But can you wait a little longer? That woman is in the detention center. We need to wait until she gets out before we can do the transformation. Otherwise, she won't have time to commit the crime." "Southeast Asian man, that'll cost extra. 50,000 per day." "Nicole, Mom, I heard Cecilia's appendicitis wound got infected in the detention center. She'll definitely go to the hospital. Why don't we use that time to commit the crime? Then I'll visit the hospital, making it seem like I escaped from the hospital. That will make it even more convincing." The second part of the video showed the Southeast Asian man performing the facial transformation on Nicole. After the transformation, Nicole looked exactly like me. At this point, Sandra realized there was no way out. She broke down in tears. "Misty, you ruined my life. If it weren't for meeting you, I could have lived a peaceful life. Ever since I met you, I've learned how unfair life can be. Why were you born into a wealthy family, while I was born into a family with nothing? Why are you so beautiful, while I'm just so ordinary? Why is your husband handsome and considerate, while mine is ugly and abusive? I'm going to take everything you have, and even if I can't have it, I'll destroy it. Chapter 11. At this point, Sandra completely lost her mind, realizing that the crimes she had committed had led her to an irreversible downfall. You think your fake acts of kindness will make me grateful to you? I know. You just wanted to show off in front of me, to flaunt your superiority. Don't you love showing off? Fine. I'll swap my daughter with yours. Let my daughter live the privileged life, and flaunt her superiority in front of your daughter every day. I'm going to return every insult you've thrown at me. Watching how you care for my daughter, pampering her, providing her with everything, makes me laugh inside. Do you know? I had your daughter doing housework from the time she was 4 years old, feeding her only 2 meals a day. If she didn't please me, I'd whip her with a leather strap. Watching her cry helplessly, I felt so satisfied. It's indescribable. You bitch. I'll tear you apart. Mrs. Wong was instantly enraged, stepping forward to strike Sandra, but the police blocked her. Sandra's face twisted, like that of a vicious ghost. Ha ha ha. You can't take it, can you? Well, I have even more explosive news for you. Your husband's sudden death was caused by me poisoning him. I thought he was quite handsome, so I gave him a chance, but he didn't know how to appreciate it. Wasn't that looking for death? I can poison my own husband without batting an eye. What's he worth? Just because he's handsome, does he think he's something special? At this revelation, everyone froze in shock. Mrs. Wong looked at Sandra with rage in her eyes. You venomous woman. So it was you who killed Martin. Nicole also stared at Sandra, her face filled with horror. Mom, is that true? Dad, the live stream was completely in an uproar. Wow. I didn't expect this at all. This is turning into a major case. This woman is truly vicious. She poisons other people's husbands and then kills her own. Jealousy really can be deadly. She even blames others for her own actions. She's both evil and bizarre. Ladies, take a good look at your friends, and warn your husbands if they're tempted by someone. Don't resist too hard. It's better than being poisoned to death. With the Southeast Asian man's testimony and the video evidence, the case was finally solved. The several murder cases Sandra had committed were all confirmed after investigation. In the end, Sandra was sentenced to death for the murders, while Nicole, being an accomplice, was sentenced to 15 years in prison. In prison, Nicole completely broke down and was eventually sent to a mental institution. As for the bar owner, Mrs. Wong ended up compensating him. In her words, just skip a few fancy dinners. Go to a few less clubs. The bar owner isn't having it easy either, so I'll just pay him. And I was finally accepted back into the Wong family, living a carefree and prosperous life.